Hi, everyone. Welcome to the interview today. I have the pleasure of having Julie Lewin with me, and Julie is a medical intuitive. Welcome, Julie. It's so nice to have you here.
Hi, Shae. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm so delighted to be here.
Well, we're delighted to have you. And I've been researching you, and like I told you earlier, tuning into some of your videos and your work, and I'm just so excited to jump into this because so much of what you do is just perfect for this Phoenix rising, because as I was saying earlier, our ascension into who we are, more of who we are, it really is only inhibited and has been inhibited in the past by our limitations or our blocks and restrictions. And as a medical intuitive and by some other methods, which we'll talk about more, you basically are removing those blocks that keep us from rising. So I just want to jump into that, and I want to know a little bit more about you and your story and how you got to do the work you're doing.
Okay, well, I was 25. So that was 32 years ago. And back in the 1980s, early 1980s, there were no teachers to do this. But what was I went to a clairvoyant, and he told me that I had two destinies. And the first one was that I would have my marriage would fail, I'd remarry quickly, that marriage would fail, I'd be very unhappy in my life, have very few happy times, be ill in my 30s and 40s and die at 53. I'm now 57, so clearly I didn't follow that destiny. He then halfway through the reading, he said, but you have another destiny. And he said, if you follow that destiny, your marriage will survive, will be 35 years this year. You will overcome the illnesses in your 30s and 40s. I'm a cancer survivor and 17 years. What else? He said, you have a gift of X-ray vision and you can see inside of people's bodies. If you choose that destiny, you'll be of great benefit to the world and you'll live into your 90s. So I decided in my youthful wisdom that I would figure out how to see inside of people's bodies. And so I lay in bed at night and I'd go, okay, God, if you want me to do this, you show me how. And I started seeing these movies rolling in my mind, and I started taking notice of them. And I thought, oh, I wonder what would happen if I do that. And serendipitously, I discovered that I was traveling through the body, and then I would contact that person and say, is blah, 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 blah happening? And they go, oh my gosh, how did you know? And I said, I'm practicing. And so that's what I did. I practiced for 10 years. And then my dad came to visit after a couple of years of this practice, and I think the word's called skiting, about how I could see inside of people's bodies. And he said, well, have a look in mine. And I saw a number of things. And in the morning I said I saw this thing in his chest, and he said, oh, that's how the doctors described my hiatus hernia. I said, Dad, I didn't know you had one of those. So that was my first tick. And then I went to behind his right knee. He said, how do you know about that? Not even your mother knows that. That happened in the war. I don't know. I'm telling you what I saw. So that was really exciting for me, that I got this really good validation from a skeptic. And then the next night that night he said, are you going in again? I said, well, I wasn't intending to. And he said, please do. So I went in, and Shae, I lost all my confidence that I got in the morning because everywhere. And so I thought, oh, well, I'll just paint that up the sides of his esophagus. And when he asked me in the morning what I saw, I said, oh, I think I might be making it up. He said, no, tell me. I said, Dad, it was all different. There was white stuff in there. he actually had the color drop out of his face. He said, I took white medicine before I lay down, but I didn't tell you. So that confirmed for me that I literally had discovered a way to see inside of people's bodies. And then it just went from there. I practiced with people for 10 years. And then I was on that TV show called The Extraordinary back in the 1990s. Literally, Shae, pre-email, pre-internet. It was all old school with a letter in an envelope. My husband would go to the mailbox. We had to get a post box. And he would bring home a sack of mail. I mean, a big sack, like a huge mail sack every 3 days.
Wow.
For months. And I responded to all of those tens of thousands of letters from all over the world. I was in the phone book, and they would ring 24/7. And I think I was doing medical intuitive readings. We didn't call it that in those days. For 8 people a day, 7 days a week. And I did that for 3 years.
Wow.
It was exhausting, but I learned my craft really well. And then I got sick, and I said to the universe, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. And a really, really interesting thing happened. One of my clients from back in the 1990s rang me in 2000, January 2000, said, Julie, I don't know why, but I need to come and see you. And she lived, it's like going from the border at Canada to the bottom of Miami or Florida. That's how far away she lived from me. She came especially to see me. And what happened? She said, I don't know why I'm here. So we sat in my meditation room, and she started talking to me, and she started channeling Sai Baba to me.
Oh.
And he had a very strong message. And the message was, you will return to your work.
Oh.
You will do this. You will be more powerful than you ever thought you were before. And you will not stop. So at that point, I was very unwell. That was before I was diagnosed with cancer. And the interesting thing that happened, the morning after I woke up from surgery, I felt amazing. Like all the energy was vibrating with electricity, with joy, with wonder. And I felt well, like incredibly well. And I started doing my work again within a week of having that surgery.
Wow.
And I haven't stopped. So, sometimes I go, what, universe, I'm done. Just give me a little rest. And I'll have a little rest, and I'll regroup and get my energy back. And then I keep going. And every time I do that, Shae, I feel like I've expanded more. So this is a tip for everyone. Like, I have my crises. I have meltdowns, and I go, I've taken on too much. And then I engage, and I hope everyone listening gets this. I engage the principle of waiting. And in that time when I wait, I actually gather my energies back into my body, and I refill my energy reservoir. And I don't do anything. I don't work on my business. I don't work with people. I just wait. And then you know what happens? I've created this space for the universe to show me the next step. And I go, oh, now I know. And then I'm back in flow, and it all starts rolling again. And look, this has happened to me just a month ago. I had a big, what I would term a crisis. And then I thought, Julie, you have all these resources that you've developed over the last 30 years. Just use them. And the thing that came up for me was, just wait. Has the universe ever failed you? No. Has it always worked out? Yes. So I did my principles, did my processes, and now I'm back in flow and everything's flowing again. But I literally feel like I've expanded in my sensitivity to the world. And so that's like, we don't have just one phoenix rising out of the ashes. We're just going up okay, I'm just seeing a vision of the pyramid and the blocks on the pyramid. So we just go through a crisis, we rise out of that, and then we come to another. So we're still going up. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's a great visual.
And yeah, so that's how I view it. I don't look at a crisis as something bad. I celebrate it because I know something amazing is going to come out of it. And all I have to do is be still inside. And if that's the only thing people get out of this talk, that's powerful. It's really amazing if you can do that.
Well, I can tell it's powerful because I keep getting these waves of chills going through my body in like recognition of what you're talking about, like that truth, it's resonating so deeply for me.
Yeah.
Ooh, and that Sai Baba, when he came to you and said, no, actually, we're going to do this. And, when that level speaks to you, I suppose you learned surrender a while before that. So it's this thing of surrendering over and over to this.
Actually, can I talk on that topic?
Yes.
Because I was in a spiritual community at that time, not Sai Baba. Like, I'd heard of Sai Baba, but I wasn't in that lineage at all. And so in the spiritual community I was in, the message was that you must surrender. So I'd been in that community for 2 years and I practiced surrendering. Every day I would try to strategically surrender. And you know what? You cannot strategically surrender. It does not work. So here's how I know that. Surrendering is when you go like this, and people think this is a bad place to be. It's when you feel the tears well up inside of you and you rock back in your chair and you just go, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. That is the moment that the universe goes, oh, so you'll let me do this now? You ready?
Exactly.
You're ready? Okay, let's go. But even me telling you that, you can't strategically rock back in your chair and put your hands in the air and go, I'm done. It actually comes prior to mind, and it's a force that moves through you. That is actually what surrender is in my book. And that's what I call the crisis. It's where you completely, you feel like you've done everything that you can do and it's not working. It's because source isn't doing it. You're mindfully doing it. And so it's actually when you give up. It's not that you're giving up forever. It's just that you're giving up the control of trying to fix whatever's going on. So here's my analogy that I say to my students and my clients. If you can imagine the well. So we've got a well. You've fallen down the well. And your hands are out like that on the sides and your feet are like that on the sides, and you've found a little crack. And so your fingernails are in that crack and you're saying, I'm not falling any further. I'm not going any further. And you feel your fingers slipping and then you go like that. So here's the thing. Sometimes you are so close to the bottom, but because it's dark in the well, you don't know. And this is what I've discovered. There's actually a trampoline in the bottom of the well. And if you just let go and stop trying to save yourself, you bounce on the trampoline and come back out and you're out of the well. And if you can actually allow that, that's when the magic happens. That's when you can get that out of the fire happening really quickly. But you've got to actually bounce off the trampoline and stop trying to hold on to the sides, because that's what's actually stopping you from getting through the crisis. It's that is actually making the crisis longer. Does that make sense?
It makes crystal clear, perfect sense. You did a beautiful job of describing that process, and
Yeah.
I know it inside and out. I'm sure that I'm not done with it. I get it. I know I'm not, but I have been there over and over, and it absolutely, you did such a great job of describing it too. And it's really that point of the letting go. That's when, and the trampoline at the bottom, I've never thought of it like that before, but every time I've gone through that process, yes, it is that shooting back up. It's that elevation. It's that expansion beyond that, that grip and that fear and that anxiety that we hold on to in our bodies and everything else.
Exactly. And so that's probably the best advice I can give somebody about surrendering and not doing it from here. And you know, there's that old cliche of it's the darkest before dawn, or it's the coldest before dawn. It's the same in a crisis. And I have, if you kick toes or your feet and don't get angry with that, because that's my metaphysical body language that says, oh my goodness, you're standing at the cliff edge and you're just about to have that breakthrough, or you're just about to hit the trampoline and shoot back out of that well. And so that's a time to celebrate, because you're so close. And not always does that happen, but it happens often. And that's your body saying to you, not far to go now. You're nearly there. And I see that as a form of encouragement to keep doing what you're doing, and you're not far away.
I'm so grateful that you just shared all of that. And I know that that's going to help so many people hearing this conversation, because that is such a fundamental and relative point in this whole journey, this whole process of waking up and evolution and expansion that we're talking about. And over and over again, I feel that we'll hit that spot, and it gets easier, perhaps. I think it gets easier because we learn how to transcend or transverse it a little better each time. So in that right, it's easier. You know, sometimes the lessons, as we get, I think, closer to our core or the deeper aspects, which might seem scarier, that part doesn't seem easier, but we've got this understanding of how to, oh, it's this again. And it's like that muscle that you build again and again, and you just it gets easier to handle it that way.
I call that muscle our neural pathways. So what we're doing is we're building neural superhighways. So every time we lay down the experience, we're putting another layer in. So that's why things do get easier. That's why we do have the intuition and that recognition. What it looks like on the outside may be different, but if you start looking for patterns, you will see that neural highway is actually activated, and you'll go, oh, okay, so I'm at this step in that pattern. And then you can choose, do I interrupt that pattern here and choose to do something else, or do we watch it play out and you do that again? So the task set for you is actually observer. And when you're the observer, you're not in the drama. So you know Cartman's triangle, the drama triangle. So we have over here the victim, we have the rescuer, and we have the perpetrator. And they can be on any sides of that. So if you find that you're in a crisis or in a drama, all you have to do is go like this. Up here, look down, and go, which am I? Victim? Am I the perpetrator, or am I the rescuer? And invariably I'm the rescuer, because, you know, I feel people, right? So I pull myself up here and I look down and I go, oh, Julie, you're doing that thing again. As you actually pull yourself out of the drama. And when you're out of the drama, you can become the creator of your world. And that's how you get through the fire as well. There's lots of resources available for us that are not hard. It just means that we need to know ourselves more. It's about learning who we are, and then we can traverse this journey we call being human.
Right. Always the greater self-awareness, which is the process and the goal itself. If you want to put it as a goal, it's a goal that I think never ends as long as we're incarnate. It's a continual process.
It is.
It's the direction, let's put it that way, the direction we're headed. And
that's it.
You mentioned a few moments ago about the body, and I'd love to touch a little bit more on the body in this whole process, and, you know, what you see happening with people's bodies, etc.
Absolutely. So I have what I call my metaphysical body language. And because I've been doing this work for over 30 years, I observe the patterns that the body does. So, for example, when I see people say they have sore shoulders, I immediately know, without them telling me one more word, you take responsibility for other people's stuff. So I know that. And when I say that to them, their face crumples a little bit and they go, well, yes, I do. And I just say, I want you to put so this is a little technique that everyone can do. You put your hands on your shoulders and you say, I don't have to do that anymore. But you have to say it meaningfully. It needs to be, you're actually making a vow to yourself. So it's not about how softly you say it or how loudly you say it. It's about how much conviction there is in your voice, how much genuine belief that you have in, I don't have to do that anymore. And what happens is all the tension just flows out. It's gone. I remember I was at a conference and I said this from stage, and this man came up to me afterwards and he said, Julie, I was really interested in what you were saying. He said, it was his left side. He said, for 10 years and I can't shift it. And I said to him, well, what happened 10 years ago when that happened? When you got that sore shoulder, who did you take responsibility for? What did you take responsibility for that was not yours? He looked at me shocked. He said, I know what it is. I said, I don't want to know, but you know. And I got him to put his hand on his shoulder, and he had to say it 4 times. On the 4th time, his eyes went really big, and he said to me, I felt that come down my arm and out. And he said, I don't have any pain anymore. He said, you would have no idea how much money I've spent, how many practitioners just fixed it in 3 minutes in a conference. He wrote me the next day and he said, Julie, that was amazing. It's still gone. And I followed up with him and it was still gone. So for people that are listening, this is powerful. You just don't have to do that anymore. But you need to honor that agreement. That if you don't honor that agreement, guess what? Your body just is going to go, oh, here we go again. And that it will just come back. If you can honor that agreement and know that this is a sacred process that you're engaging in, you can absolutely transform every part of your body. For people with anxiety, so just here, sitting above, like when we get anxious, guess what? We can't breathe very well because we contract like this. So just in here, sitting between the lungs, is a gland called the thymus gland. And yeah, right there. So if you stick your thumb in that little dip there and place your hand actually with your fingers out. Yeah, that's exactly right, Shae. You are above your thymus gland. And so you don't need to know what the worry and concern is, but worry and concern is what causes anxiety, even if you don't know what it is. So you say out loud, I don't have to do that anymore. And you keep saying it until this warmth floods through your chest. I have to draw a little picture here, and I'll show you what I mean. Because in the thymus gland, it releases a hormone that looks like this. They've seen it under the microscope. And stress is this blob that floats around in the body. It's in the blood. It's not formed very well. So guess what that hormone does? It eats it. It consumes it like that. So I decided, okay, how can I release that hormone deliberately? Our body does all these things autonomically, but what if I could do it deliberately, consciously? So that's why I put my hand there and I say, I don't have to do that anymore until the warmth floods in my chest. And then the hormone's been released. It's in your bloodstream and it will travel through your body, down your arms, down your trunk, down your legs. When it gets down to your feet, just allow that energy to keep going all the way down to the core of the earth. The earth will transform it. And then what I also learned was that the liver cleans the blood every 2 minutes. So it takes about 2 minutes and you don't feel that feeling anymore. That's because the liver has cleaned all that hormone with that stress out of your body and it gets eliminated. The liver does its job. So I was working with somebody yesterday and she said that her stress levels were 8 out of 10. We did that technique and it dropped to 4 out of 10. Then I taught another technique. She dropped to 2 out of 10. Then we did something else. She was down to 1 out of 10.
Julie, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. I lost you for a minute there. You froze up, but I don't know. Maybe you were talking or if you want to repeat it.
Yeah, so okay, so I'll go back to, because you can edit this. I'll go back 10 for anxiety and stress. We did that technique here. She dropped to 4 out of 10. And then I did another technique that dropped her to 2 out of 10. And then we kept talking. She dropped to 1 out of 10. So the body is a miracle machine. Like, it knows how to heal itself. That's the thing that actually causes the disease in our body, because all the resources our body has to keep it healthy and whole and well, they actually have to go to dealing with this. Those resources are not available to keep the body healthy. And so there's not enough of that. And so eventually what happens is these rogue cells, they take over. They transform. It just feels like you're pushing uphill. And so people is, you focus on this, focus on reducing your stress, consuming that stress and getting rid of it, and you will actually do the best job of your body coming out of that. That's what I do. I help people come out of that stress state and into the serene and calm. So what I'm also doing is helping people come out of the drama triangle and be the observer. So the more you are the observer of your life, the more you are dealing with the stress, because you're not in there creating more of that.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So that's how I work with the body. What else? If you get sore kidneys, that tells me that you're not processing, you're not handling the emotional side of your life. If you get UTI, urinary tract infection, bladder problems, that tells me, yeah, you're pretty good at doing the processing of the emotion, but you can't let go of that last little bit. Like, it just niggles at you. So that every time I say to my clients, oh, you just can't let that last little bit go, they go, no, I can't. So, okay, let's work on that. So the body has its own language that it's talking to you every single day. But if you don't know the language of your body, then you don't understand how you can actually transition into this state of happiness, peacefulness every day. It is possible to do that. So what else? So I talked, and so if people have hips, knees, feet, that tells me that they're making changes in either their relationship, their career, or their home. And guess what? Often it's all three at the same time. And they wonder why their hips are sore or their knees are sore, or if you're at the I'm thinking about leaving my partner or buying a new house or changing jobs, you may get pain in your hips. It may have happened because of an accident, but here's what I believe. The energy is disturbed in your body before the accident happens. If the energy wasn't disturbed, nothing would happen to you because your energy body would be strong. Mm-hmm. But if you've already disturbed it at the energy body level, then it's weak, and a bump or a fall or something like that will actually just penetrate more easily. And I look at the situation of, there can be two car accidents. In this car accident, exactly the same scenario, this person sadly passes away. In this one, the car is completely mangled. That person walks out with nothing wrong with them. This person's gone, this person lives. The only thing I can think of is this person's energy body was whole. Mm-hmm. It was strong. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like angels got in there and protected them. This person's energy body might have actually been filled with this. Mm-hmm. And that they had weaknesses in their energy body, and it couldn't sustain the I've got the word blast, or the hit or the force. Mm-hmm. And so it was their time to transition. So I often think about those anomalies, and the only conclusion I come to, Shae, is that it gets down to our energy body. And so that's where I work with my clients. I don't work literally on the physical body because I have a global business. I work on that energy body that everybody has. And I've worked out a way that if I work in that body, we have a direct relationship to this body. I help people reduce fluid. What do you call that? Edema. Edema. Mm-hmm. Out of their body. By working over here, we use syringes in the energy body to draw it out. Within 15 minutes, there's no fluid in the body of the body, because we've given instructions to the body to remove it. So or just do a little drawing here. It's all about physics, physics, I think. So let's say this here is the lymphatic system. It's a channel, like a blood vessel. So we have all the fluid sitting in the cells on either side of that channel. We don't want that in the cells like that. We don't want the fluid in there. We want the fluid in here. So we have to change the pressure. So if we have more pressure in there, it's going to draw through osmosis. It's going to draw that fluid into here. So that's the mechanics of it. Now, I don't know how to tell the body to do that, but I can show the body what I want it to do in a picture. So that's how I work with it. So I just put imagine my fingers are really swollen. I imagine I put a syringe in there, I draw it back, and I pull the fluid out. So what I'm doing is I'm creating more pressure in the lymphatic channel, and the body actually does that job for me in pulling the fluid into the channel. Some people even feel it coming into the stomach. There's a valve in the stomach, a lymphatic valve that opens and the lymph goes into the stomach. They feel a little pain there as it gushes into the stomach. How amazing is that?
That's very amazing. Can I ask you a question? When you said you put the syringe in, I'm seeing that you're working in the energetic field and you're using your imagination with the syringe in that level. Is that correct?
Exactly. All in the imagination. Over the last 50 years, what I've observed is if a child is like gazing out the window, he's in another world of his own, guess what the teacher says? Johnny, get your attention back here. Stop that daydreaming. And we've got to the point today where children don't even know what a daydream is.
Right, because it's this.
That's exactly right. They're being given the daydream of somebody else. Like whoever designed the game, whoever designed the TV show, that's their imagination, not that child's imagination. So we need to get back to that. Allow your child to just sit and look out the window. Allow yourself to just sit and look out the window and do nothing. It is not being lazy. It is actually part of the process.
And is that the same thing you mentioned earlier when you said at the beginning of our conversation, you talked about, what word did you use? But it was where you just stopped everything and you allowed yourself to be in a space, and that was creating space for the universe to come in. Would that be the same basic space as allowing, that's what you're doing in that process, right? Same
exactly.
thing?
Exactly. But what I'm doing, if I'm working on the body, I have discovered, because it happened spontaneously the first time, because I was sitting in that space, and I said, what do I do here? And then I allowed the space for the movie to fold in, and I followed the movie like the Dorothy or Alice in Wonderland, like they followed the road. And so I follow the movie that comes in, and I go, oh, I wonder if I do this, what will happen? And amazing things happen when you follow your imagination and follow. And then I think, oh, something else. So I do it again. Oh, I get the same result. So they're the ones that I go, oh, maybe I can teach this to people. And so that's how my whole life, well, certainly since I was 25, has unfolded. I follow that magic. I follow I allow the space, and then I wait. What will come? And then I follow it, and I interact with it, and I engage in that. But to somebody on the outside, I'm just sitting in a chair looking out the window. And this is what's happening. If somebody is sitting at their desk and they're not perceived to be working, then they get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Stop just staring out the window. Stop just looking at your monitor. You need to be doing something. But if you talk to CEOs of companies or millionaires and billionaires, because they've achieved very well, they will say to you that looking out the window is just as important as the doing, because that's where they get their creativity. That's where they get the magic and the innovation to keep doing what they're doing. That's what gives them the edge. So this is another point that I would love for people to take out of this. Gift yourself nothing time and see what drops in, because it will be magic. I have no doubt of that.
Whew, more chills. Just what you're saying is so important. I'm like, yes, 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 because I know that space and I know what can happen in that space. And you know what's interesting? You were talking about Dorothy and Alice. Where do you think those stories even came from? How did they come to be? Yeah? So, yes, somebody had to have been in that imaginary space to come up with these brilliant fables that have been so popular. And why are they so popular? I think on a level we recognize the importance of this space and how they were created in the process of being in that imagination. Some part of us resonates and knows how important, because these stories have been around for many decades now, and they're just, I mean, that's just one aspect of what you said, but that just became so clear to me when you were talking about that.
Exactly. It's as you were just talking then, my whole body just went to goosebumps. So that's another point that I'd like to make. Find out what your body does when you're doing something that is spot on in alignment with the universe. I get goosebumps. I get them down my arms. Sometimes they go down my back. Sometimes I get goosebumps on my toes. And I know when the goosebumps go all the way to my toes, that's really important. And it's saying, Julie, you need to listen. And so I've learned the nuances of my goosebumps, but not everyone gets goosebumps. Sometimes people will get the hair on the back of their neck will stand up, or sometimes they'll get this feeling in their gut, or sometimes their heart will race a little. That everyone has their own signal that the universe gives to them when you actually have to trust. When there's no evidence that what you're saying or thinking is truth with a capital T, but your body is resonating with it as truth. So this is your signal. Trust in this. Trust the universe. And what happens is people, particularly left brain people, they go, no, it doesn't stack up. I don't see the evidence of that. So I'm going to go this way. You're going to, invariably it goes pear-shaped. So people override their intuition. They override that gut response because they're not getting the evidence. So intuition and trust is about not seeing the evidence, but feeling it. And that's really important. And I recommend, this is another tip. Gosh, I've got so many. Get a little journal that's just for your intuition. And don't do anything different to what you would normally do. But if you override it and make a different choice, write that at the back of the book. And then write down what actually happens because of that choice. At the front of the book, write down when you actually follow that intuition and what happens. And over a period of 6 or 12 months, you've got a really good documentation of evidence that when you trust your intuition, it flows smoothly. Or it might lead you to somewhere that you go, oh my God, I trusted my intuition and it went pear-shaped. But this is Phoenix rising. Out of that pear shape comes this amazing new element of your life that you've been dreaming about, and the universe has provided the way for you to get there. So not all crises and bad things are actually bad. Look, have I got time to tell a story to illustrate this?
Yes, you do.
Okay, so gosh, back in the 1990s, my husband was a taxi driver. He loved that job. We had our kids at private school. That's expensive. And we weren't flush with money. So we decided we needed to earn $1,000 a week to do all the things that we wanted to do. And so we had an opportunity be presented to us. And we actually even borrowed the money for that opportunity. And it was going to give us $900 a week. And then with my income, we met that $1,000 a week. And I know that doesn't sound much these days, but like 25 years ago, that was a lot of money. And it met what we wanted. So we signed into that opportunity. We received our investment back in our $900 allotments over about 6 weeks. It turned out to be a scam. So what happened was we got no more money. Frank had left his job as a taxi driver, and we had to pay back the money that we borrowed to get into the scam. So here's what happened. We're resourceful. I didn't say, universe, you betrayed me. We said, okay, so how can we do what you really want to do? And he was introduced to a company that gave him a taxi driving job where we actually singled the cab. So that's like owning your own cab, but you give it back on the weekend and somebody else drives it. You don't pay the insurance, you don't pay the maintenance, but you pay a set amount every week. And basically we had our own second car for 5 days a week with no responsibility. Like, hello, that was amazing. And then guess what happened? Frank earned more than $1,000 a week. So we got more than what we asked for. We just had a period of crisis. And then I was diagnosed with cancer. And so for me to get up at 3 a.m. on a Monday morning to drive him to get the taxi and then come back home, that was really tough when I was so unwell. So guess what that company did? They said, Frank, you can pick the taxi up early at 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock on Sunday, so your wife doesn't have to get up at 3 a.m. and we won't charge you anything for that. Wow. And that didn't end when I got better. That went on for another 15 years. So if we hadn't said yes to that initial opportunity that went pear-shaped, that was such a big crisis, like the police were involved in that with us for 10 years investigating it. Every now and then they'd ring up and say, can we take another statement? That actually changed our lives. That prepared us. So the universe would have known that I was going to get sick a few years down the track, and we were already set up for the universe to take care of our situation. So don't always feel that a crisis or that your intuition is leading you astray. Just keep an open mind. I'm not saying that every scenario that goes pear-shaped is actually going to have that outcome, but along the journey, we always have choices. Sometimes we don't like either of the choices, but we always have choices. And it's about staying true to your dream of what your life is going to be, and learning about yourself through whatever scenario. And that's what this phoenix rising out of the ashes is. You always can have that opportunity to fly free.
Yes.
You just have to take the choice.
Yes.
You can either stay down there in those ashes and keep burning, or you can, pull yourself up, dust yourself off, ask, what have I learned? And then fly. Go back to your dream. Remember your dream. And, you can always fly out of those ashes.
Yes, and exactly that. Thank you for tying those 2 points together. And I love your story because it illustrates something very important. And when we were talking about being in that crisis period, when we're in that crisis, I think something very important to remember is, again, it's that choice, it's that free will that we have. How will we be in that moment? How will we make that choice? What is the intention behind that? And how we manage our energy through that process, I've noticed, directly affects the outcome.
Exactly.
And the speed, et cetera, all the elements that are involved as to how we will come out of that, for example.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so if you understand the process, even only intellectually, you're better prepared for operating the principle of waiting, because sometimes all you need to do is do nothing.
Yes.
Sometimes the best choice is to do nothing and wait. And then you'll find a gap. So it's better to go through a gap than climb over the mountain, isn't it?
Right.
So that's why that principle is so important.
Yes, and then within that waiting period ties back, I think, to the surrender and trust. Having that surrender and trust within the waiting period. I think that they go together. Well, I don't know how to explain it, because if you're waiting but you're anxious, you're not really waiting. You're not.
That's
really
exactly right. So that's when you do this and you go, I don't have to do that anymore. And you just settle. And your choice in that moment is actually to get rid of this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So you're still making a choice, is to just give your body what it needs, give your soul what it needs for the next step. And look, I was in a crisis only a month ago, and my body was going like this because I made a decision that involved a lot of money. And I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? And I was saying to my husband, what have I done? Why didn't you stop me? He said, like I can do that. And he said, Julie, you're going to have to just get through this. He said, I'm here, but you're the one who made that decision. And so I lay like I was still awake at 2 a.m. My body was still going like this. And that's when I started asking myself, has the universe ever let me down? Has the universe never provided? And I ask those tough questions because the universe always provides. Always. I find a way. And so my breathing settled down, and the quivering inside settled down, the adrenaline settled down, probably the cortisol settled down, and I was able to actually go, you know what, Julie, you've got this. You know what to do. You just need to give yourself the space to do it. Can I share what that big thing was that I decided
Sure.
I would do? I decided that I was going to run a retreat in Thailand in October. And I actually bought my airline tickets back then, 3 weeks ago, before I even wrote the sales page, before I even told anyone about it. I've committed nearly $2,000, and then a retreat venue, it was money that I hadn't budgeted for. So that's what really upset me. I hadn't budgeted for that money, and I spent it, because my theory is if I commit, then I figure out a way to do it. but I just pushed myself over the edge in that moment. And so I had to, bring it all back in. I had to recalibrate. I had to just wait. So here's what happened. I knew I was going to be busy for 3 weeks, but on Tuesday this week, I woke up and I went, right, I'm ready. I waited until I was ready. I wrote that sales page, built the website in 2 days.
Wow.
Because I waited. I didn't try to force it. I waited until basically everything lined up. And then I went, you know what I did? I was in the principle of waiting. I watched a webinar, and in the webinar, I got that last answer to what I was waiting for. And I went, right, now I know what to do. So if you actually, the viewers, if you got what I just said to you, that is pure magic, because I set an intention, I waited, and then the universe provided me with the answer I needed to fulfill my intention. And now I have written an amazing web page that gives people goosebumps. But if I had written that last week, it wouldn't have given people goosebumps. Wow. Because I wouldn't have been in flow. I wouldn't have known exactly what I needed to do, because I got that tip on that third point. Mm-hmm. That's what we're talking about here, is we have Phoenix rising all the time in our lives. If we look at it from that perspective, that's what the rhythm of life is. Every time we go up, that's we've come out of the ashes. When we go down in the valley, we're in the ashes. So then we come back up. And that's the rhythm of life.
I love how you just described that. It's absolutely resonant with me. I completely agree. And that's how I've seen it too. It's not one cycle in a life. It's tons of little cycles, and to different degrees and at different times with different opportunities coming out of them. But it is this constant rhythm, which is what we're all about anyway. Mother Earth is rhythm. We are rhythm. And so are these cycles and these opportunities. And your story illustrated that beautifully in your 3 points on how to do that. I mean, that's fantastic, because that's a practical application to this process, which can seem a little bit hard to nail down sometimes. Or if you're just starting off in the process, maybe you're not as familiar with it as you might be later on.
Exactly. Yeah. And it can be daunting as well. And so that's where I would bring in, if you are daunted by getting through your valley, I call it the valley, that's where you have a mentor who's walked the journey before you.
Exactly.
There's a difference between a mentor and a coach. And one of my mentors really distinguished that for me. A mentor has walked the path before you. They've made the mistakes. They've found their way through, and they just are waiting for somebody to say, how did you do that?
Yes.
Will you share that with me? And so a good mentor will envelop your dream and will show you how to make your dream come true with the steps that they've walked. They will not try to change your dream. They will not try to change the direction of your dream. They will see how they can help awaken you to be innovative and set intention and wait for the universe to show you the way to fulfill your dream. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. It's also the word guide comes up. It's someone who can guide you through your own process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've only got a few minutes left, Julie. I can't believe this is almost over. I feel like we just got into it. But I'd like to ask you if you've got any final words or thoughts, and also, would you mind sharing that web page with us so we can check it out?
Oh, which web page for the retreat?
The one you said that was so that you just came to recently. That you just
absolutely. intuitivehealingretreat.com.
And
And
this is something you're putting on, right? You're not attending it, you're creating
no,
it.
I'm creating it.
Okay.
So just briefly, here's what I hear. I'm living my life like we're down in the valley down here. I don't have time for spirituality. I don't have that time for, feeling connected to source because I'm down in the trenches all the time. So I decided that I would share with people the little rituals that I do to keep me connected with source while I'm down doing this. So it's about integrating spirituality into your daily life with those moments of joy and wonder. And so we're going to Thailand, and look, go read the page. It's just beautiful. We're having the monks bless our retreat, and
Sounds magical to me.
yeah, that's it. It really is. It's an amazing environment. And I'll tell you the reason why I chose this venue. The owner of the resort was on the ground at the beginning after that terrible Bandarache tsunami back in early 2000s that went across the Indian Ocean, and it caused so much devastation. And he observed there was all these children that were orphans and they had nowhere to live. He built an orphanage, and he's been looking after these orphan children down in the south of Thailand for, I think the tsunami was in 2004. So it's been a long time. So part of the retreat is everyone who comes can bring gifts for those children. And we're going to visit the orphanage and gift them like new clothes, new personal toiletries, and things that really make a difference for them. And many people, they have giving hearts, but they want to know that what they give actually reaches the person or the children or the situation that they want to be giving to. So when I heard that this is what John does in the background, I said to my travel agent organizer, we have to go there. And so that's one of the key things, is for people to experience that giving with no expectation of receiving. It's just that giving. And the smiles on those children's faces, that's the gift of receiving back. And so that's why I'm doing this. Yeah.
Wow. And then, I know we have to get off, but then we could talk about service and how that is part of spirituality, and generosity and giving and giving for the sake of giving from your heart.
Yes.
All of this is so pertinent to our discussion as well. It's like, wow.
Yeah. See, this is how I live my day. Every day, I have the most amazing life because every moment of my day, I'm connected to source. Everyone can live like this. Like even in the midst of my crisis, I still am connected to source, and I feel that presence in every cell in my body. How can I not be joyous? How can I not be happy? We choose to be happy. And so that's my amazing life.
Wow. And what a note to end on here. I want to say thank you for that. Thank you for talking with us this last hour, and all the tips and all the inspiration and all the wisdom and all your insights that you've gotten as a mentor for everybody listening. And I think the retreat sounds amazing, and it's just so heartful and beautiful in so many ways what you're doing there.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, Julie. Wow. Well, I guess we'll have to end it now, but thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I feel very rich in having been able to share what we've discussed in the last hour. it's been an absolute honor.
Thank you. The feeling is mutual, and this is what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
Really.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Wow. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you again for another interview. Again, thank you so much, Julie, and we'll see everybody later. Bye. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.